Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
There were a few tweets that went out earlier today, and I want you to get a react to this, okay? This was a suggestion about some folks at MSNBC on a morning program there. Here's what he said. I heard poorly rated Morning Joe, referring to Joe Scarborough, speaks badly of me, don't watch anymore. Then how come low IQ crazy Mika, meaning Mika Brzezinski, the co-host, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row during New Year's Eve, around New Year's Eve, and insisted on joining me. She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. What is the White House saying about why that went out today?
Look, I don't think that the president's ever been someone who gets attacked and doesn't push back. There have been an outrageous number of personal attacks, not just to him, but to, frankly, everyone around him. People on that show have personally attacked me many times. This is a president who fights fire with fire and certainly will not be allowed to be bullied by liberal media and the liberal elites within the media or Hollywood or anywhere else.
I get it, but is that necessary?
Look, I think what's necessary is to push back against unnecessary attacks on the president, both personally. I've seen far worse things come out of that show, again, directed not just at the president, but everyone around him. Personal attacks, mean, hateful attacks. And again, this president isn't going to sit back and not push back, and he's going to fight fire with fire, and I think that's exactly what he did
I've heard
today.
that from you, and I've heard that from him, but it just seems like it is entirely more personal than it needs to be. And I'm wondering if you want to address that.
I think I have addressed that as much as I can in terms of the president, again, isn't going to be somebody who's bullied and allows people himself and those around him to be personally attacked.
He would argue that he's always going to punch back and he's not going to fire the first shot, and perhaps he feels the criticism toward him is unwarranted.
I mean, the outrageous attacks that take place on that show day in, day out, not just at the president and not against his policies, not against things that he's pushing, but they're personal and they're not just directed at him, but again, everyone around him. I've been called a lot of names on that show that don't have anything to do with my beliefs or ideology or policy, but they're personal attacks.
Is there something we need to know more about this relationship?
Not that I'm aware of. I couldn't speak to anything.
There is no backstory that has not become public that would lead him to choose this wording?
I honestly wouldn't. I'm not aware of any extra backstory on that.
They're just not aware of anything. Oh, yes. Sarah Huckabee Sanders defending the president, who sent out a tweet this morning. He was watching Morning Joe. He had to have been watching Morning Joe because Morning Joe started talking about the fake Time magazine news cover by mocking it and putting Joe Scarborough on a fake magazine news cover. And, it's time stamped. You can kind of, let's see, cut 6 here.
And
this is it.
Transferring at a time
8:10 a.m.
The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
How long have we been here
at a faster rate than ever before in our nation's history? This is the point where the Republicans say, hey, we got a great idea. We're going to cut $1 trillion in benefits from the poorest Americans, and we're going to give it to the wealthiest Americans.
And this is the president who is going to change Washington.
What a populist. Oh, way to stand up to Goldman Sachs, Mr. President. We're really proud of you, buddy.
Good
way to go.
Why don't you get another Time magazine
cover? You're a populist.
Okay.
Oh, did you see his Time magazine
Yes,
cover?
it was so hot.
By the way,
many
did you guys
of them.
see mine?
They're in his country club.
Again.
So you paid lots of money to go to the
Compelling. I
country
love
club.
that cover. Look at that.
So Willie can tell you the two things that were going on. 1987. This was right after. What did I do in 87?
This to feel good about
I won the
yourself,
Masters.
Joe.
Everybody remembers Nicklaus in 86. Nobody remembers me winning the Masters. And what was so amazing was I was sleep deprived because I was coming off of. I opened up for U2 on the Joshua tour, the original Joshua tour. 30 years ago. I'd done 30 cities. They kicked me off. They were embarrassed because the crowds were coming out. They were cheering for me more than them. Kicked me up. And so I said, screw it. I'm going to go play Augusta, right?
And you're still stunningly superficial.
And I'm still wearing sweaters in
Listen,
July.
nothing makes a man feel better than making a fake cover of a magazine about himself, lying every day and destroying the country.
Okay.
It's a good feeling.
Well, enough about me. But where
are your hands in that photo?
In my
well, he's covering his hands here because they're teensy.
The other crazy thing about that, not to belabor that story from
I was
yesterday,
talking about Trump.
Donald Trump actually was on the cover of Time magazine 14 times.
Right.
But
that wasn't enough.
One of those up there. I don't know.
That wasn't enough, was it? Exclamation
Always
point.
needs more.
Okay.
Okay, that's what started it. 8:10 this morning. 8:10 this morning. They were talking about policy. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Choose a name, please. But they were talking about policy. They were talking about the health care policy and how it's really a big tax bill. Way to drain the swamp. Way to, take on Goldman Sachs. Way to be a populist. They were talking about that. And then they had prepared a funny mockumentary cover for Joe Scarborough to poke fun at the fact that the president of the United States of America has fake Time magazine news covers in now 8 of his golf clubs, 8 of them. And that everybody understands that Trump is fake, that everything about him is fake, that his tan is fake, his fortune is fake, everything about this man is a complete and utter sham, and that he's basically a grifter. He lies all the time. He incites violence at his rallies. He says racist things. He says misogynist things. He attacks women all the time based on their looks, based on their ideology, based on, and that is not presidential. It shows that he has zero character, zero sense of humor, zero strength of his positions. He obviously has been criticized by the Republicans now. 9 Republican senators said no to him on his own bill, their own desire to repeal and replace Obamacare. And of course, all I desire is to repeal and replace this presidency, and that's true. But he tweets this morning, okay, that happened at 8:10. By 9 a.m., this is not 4 o'clock in the morning after a Coke bender, okay? This wasn't by accident. This wasn't something that, whoops, I sent it, I didn't mean to. This was a multiple tweet, okay? Multiple tweet. And apparently he didn't run it through Lady Melania, who is taking on the big issue of internet bullying. Oh, good for her. She's doing a great job, isn't she, everybody? Yeah. But he tweeted, quote, "Low IQ crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me. She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no." Now, this is the kind of thing that would get me banned from any right-wing chat room, okay? This is the kind of thing that would get anybody banned from social media. Twitter? How about it? How about it? Facebook in France just took down like 30,000 fake websites, fake Facebook pages. How about it, Twitter? Why don't you try banning at Real Donald Trump? He is abusive. He is not strong. He is not brave. He's a grifter. He's a con man. He hangs around with other grifters. He's got Paul Manafort now, who just registered retroactively also as a foreign lobbyist for Russia's preferred Ukrainian dictator Viktor Yanukovych, and just told us that he made $17 million off of representing that freaking dictator, that guy, over like 3 years. I mean, who the hell makes $17 million in 3 years representing a dictator and then goes on to be the campaign manager for the GOP nominee? Who in the world? Name me somebody. Show me that. Roger Stone is a grifter. Jay Sekulow is a grifter. Now there's all kinds of newspaper articles, and there's legal cases now. There's a legal case against Jay Sekulow and his bogus charity in North Carolina, in New York. Steve Bannon, who is actually a producer of fake news. He's a grifter. We had testimony yesterday by the former NATO ambassador, Nicholas Burns, who said that this president is derelict in his duty, fails to protect the United States, which I've been saying, against our enemies. Number 1 is Russia. It's unbelievable. And then last night has a fundraiser for himself at his own freaking hotel so that he can promote his hotel, and nobody knows who paid for it, and nobody knows if he charged a fair market value for the rental to his own. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just amazing. He held a fundraiser at the Trump International Hotel at the old post office building. It cost attendees $35,000 a plate. One of them, now how stupid do you have to be, Nevada? One of the people who paid $35,000 to attend the fundraiser was Senator Dean Heller. For the love of Pete. Would he have to pay $35,000 because the Trump campaign had to spend so much on the attack ads against him? Who does this? Who freaking does this? It's like self-emulation. It's like masochism. Just go to kink.com and get your jollies that way. My God, man. Fundraisers for himself only 40 months out, everybody. Only 40 months out. Dude, you should be more concerned about making sure you finish your first term, because that's more in question than whether or not you'll be reelected. This is unfreaking believable. And then Sarah Huckabee had a press conference today. Okay. And this was interesting. This was really noteworthy because the debunks on this is so easy. I mean, it's just, it's super fun. But here she is.
Fair question, but on this, just one other aspect of it. Some have suggested in their tweet response or public announcements today that the president misconstrued one of the messages that should have been gathered from a shooting that involved Steve Scalise and others, that the hostility of the verbal environment can create an atmosphere of violence. I'm not saying that, but members of Congress have said that about this particular. That episode affected the president and those here at the White House personally, very importantly and deeply. Do you have any reaction to that sentiment that conversations like this create an atmosphere that is either dangerous or one we need to avoid?
The president in no way, form or fashion has ever promoted or encouraged violence. If anything, quite the contrary. And he was simply pushing back and defending himself.
Oh my God. All right, so let's just take this part, okay? The president is a coward. You know that. Because if the president had a problem with the media, you know, and he really wanted to confront the media, my God, he's got the bully pulpit. He's got a press room. He could hold a press conference. He could answer them directly, for God's sake. He could have gone to the gridiron dinner. He could have gone to the correspondence dinner. He could have, he could have some sort of, he could book himself on Morning Joe any day of the week he wants to. But now this is a guy who feels strong behind his freaking Twitter. He feels strong behind his keyboard. That's not strength. That's not character. And the idea that this president doesn't condone violence. Oh, God.
I certainly don't incite violence.
Knock the crap out of him.
Like to punch him in the face. I don't condone violence. And I don't talk about violence.
I would have done well, but I would have been boom, boom, boom. I'll beat that.
I don't know if I'll do the fighting myself or if other people will.
Maybe he should have been roughed up, because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously.
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it.
In the good old days, this doesn't happen because they used to treat them very, very rough. And when they protested once, you know, they would not do it again so easily. We've become weak. We become weak.
And you know what? The audience swung back. And I thought it was very, very appropriate. The audience hit back. And that's what we need a little bit more of now.
Part of the problem and part of the reason it takes so long is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore, right?
I don't know if I would have done well, but I would have been out there fighting, folks. I don't know if I would have done well, but I would have been boom, boom, boom. I'll beat that.
Do you plan on paying for the legal fees of this older gentleman in North Carolina who sucker punched the protester?
From what I understand, he was sticking a certain finger up in the air. And that is a terrible thing to do in front of somebody that, frankly, wants to see America made great again.
It's possible you could help him with legal fees if this man needs it.
I've actually instructed my people to look into it, yes.
He doesn't promote violence, Sarah Huckabee said. And they want to know why people call them liars. It's so easy to show the lie. It's so this was a man who started his entire political career with birtherism, okay? And what did Obama do? He handled it with humor and strength and character and smarts and dignity and integrity. This man is just a bully. He tweets at 9:00 in the morning. And it sounds like a 14-year-old girl after a 3-day bender on cocaine because, that's what it comes. This is strength. This is what she's. If you hit. The president feels that he's, being damaged. He's being insulted by the media. Yeah, he's being insulted. I feel so bad. How you doing, Mr. President? You okay? You all right? You want a hug? Come nestle in my armpit. I will hug on you. He feels so damaged. He feels so maligned. He feels, he needs some love. Where is the love? He doesn't understand where the love is. Hang in there, Mr. President. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.